Talk to Me is the latest film from new directors Danny and Michael Philippou, who blew up on YouTube. They're big YouTube creators under the Raka Raka channel. Is that correct?
Yes.
So this is their first feature film out of New Zealand, and it's a kind of teen horror thing that we saw a trailer. Looked really scary, and the story is we meet a character named Mia, played by Sophie Wilde. Mia has recently had a death in the family. Her home life is a little rough. She spends a lot of time at her friend's house, Jade, and her little brother Riley and Daniel. They'll live in this house. She's good friends with the mom, played by Miranda Otto. They're all in high school. They go to a party one day, where all the cool kids are, and the cool kids have somehow gotten a hold of this mummified hand that says, "Hey, if you grab it and say, 'Talk to me,' some spirits will kind of come in. You'll be possessed for a little bit, but you can only hang on for 90 seconds because otherwise, quote, they'll want to stay." So naturally, the teens do what they shouldn't. They play with fire, and eventually, they can't kind of get the spirits to leave, and a lot of things begin to go wrong. And that's our setup. This movie is really pretty scary. A lot of good original horror, and great to see. Zach, what'd you think?
Talk to Me is the highest rated horror film of the year, which is crazy. We've seen nothing but good reviews from early critics who have seen it. So naturally, we were really excited to check it out. And I can say pretty satisfyingly, Talk to Me feels like a smart amalgamation of a lot of what works in cinema brought together with a new voice, right? With somebody we haven't really seen before, or I should say a couple of people, Danny and Michael Philippou. I think Talk to Me is like uniquely special, although I will admit I think it is a little smaller than a lot of the hype leads you to be. If you walk into this movie thinking it's going to be like the biggest, grandest thing, remember, $4.5 million budget. You're not getting anything really huge. But what you're getting is something like uniquely intimate and refreshing that you don't have to have seen a sequel for or a prequel for. There's no homework required. You can walk straight into Talk to Me and see something that feels very trendy and very modern and very aware of the audience it's serving. The Philippous are surprisingly modern. Everybody's got a cell phone. Every teenager is filming things and posting them at all times. It creates an environment and a setting where I think this kind of horror can uniquely thrive because it doesn't feel as unnatural, I think, as maybe it actually is. Talk to Me is really cool, and I'm excited to talk about it. Andy, where do we start?
Oh, why don't we start with our cast? So these are all, I think, Aussie or Kiwi actors from New Zealand. Newcomer Sophie Wilde leads the project. Like I said, she's got some things going on at home. Recently experienced a death in the family. She's the one. When these people grab the hand, they're kind of inviting kind of a random spirit to kind of possess them for a little bit. But when she does it, she kind of hears people close to her family. It kind of hits a little bit too close to home, and so she wants to keep doing it. She's like, I gotta, I want to hear their voice again. I want to reach out. So it's one of those things. Too much of a good thing is like I heard the voice of my deceased family member. I want to get more of that. She has a lot of possession scenes. A lot of people get possessed in this, but I think kind of what works is that it's not like The Exorcist where someone's like possessed full time. It's just kind of in little spurts. It makes it a little bit easier to kind of handle. Other standouts are the like I said, her friend Jade. And she has a boyfriend named Dan. All these people kind of touch the hand and experience it a little bit. But really interesting cast.
Yeah, lots of fun. All these kids, most of them feel like newcomers to me, at least. Special mention for Zoe Tarakas and Chris Alosio for Haley and Joss, the two kind of wardens of the hand. They are phenomenally charming. Oh my god, it's kind of the seedy younger character, and this like big buff dude who's responsible for like ripping the hand away from people if they're hanging on for it too long. I love this like haunted artifact of the hand. It's cool looking. It's interesting, and much like a Jumanji board, like you don't really know the rules going in, so all these kids are playing with it like, oh, it's like fun and weird and twisted, but it makes you feel good, like in these like insane moments where you're like seizing and your eyes turn black, and nobody can determine if it's real or not, right? And like that feeling of like skepticism that like, number one, this thing cannot actually be what people claim, and number two, the sensation of grief that our lead carries, Mia, both like pull her into trying the hand, right? I just want to try it for a second, just to see how it feels. And in that way, Talk to Me shapes this device as functionally like a metaphor for like drugs, right? There's a great party montage where they're all playing with it and the music's going and they're having a great time, and like you could swap the hand out for like crack or a bong or something,
Yeah,
and
binge
it would
drinking.
functionally be the same scene. Like it's great. Like all these kids like are delighted by like the horror of this thing because they feel like, oh, they can control it and they understand it and they have rules, right? And much like Flatliners, like eventually somebody takes it a little too far or gets tricked, or something turns on its head and the monkey paw curls and you end up with like this horrifying scenario that these characters just cannot get out of to save their lives. I love it. Like great setup, great first act, really catapults you into like what's possible.
Right. I wanted to get into our plot a little bit. Like we said, we have the hand. It temporarily possesses people. Eventually, it kind of goes on longer, and it seems to be where the kind of visions or possession kind of begin to take place even without the hand. And we start to have a lot of these things of like, well, what's real and what's not. It doesn't overdo that, which would be a misstep if it did. It's just enough to kind of keep things creepy. But there's a couple of subplots going on between, Mia's life at home, along with some interteen drama, some love triangle effects. So we kind of touch on there. I think what I would have liked to have seen is just this on like a $10 to $15 million budget. You could have had a classic. Get a few more passes at the script, really nail it down, make it tighter, get into some more of the lore. It's like it does a good job with all these things, but it's like, man, you could have really had something with maybe a little bit more time and budget.
Yeah, I think like I said, I think people are walking in maybe with expectations a little too high, a little like Skinamarink. Like that got a lot of buzz early, and a lot of people were like, "Man, this movie's freaky." And then you walk in, you're like, "Oh, it's definitely simpler than I thought." And that's like, I think, not a bad feeling to walk in to Talk to Me with. Like, don't get too excited. But like, what's here is a really, really great first step into what's next. The filmmaking here, I think I want to mention a couple things. Number one, a lot of really smooth camera work. Like lots of like not that much handheld, surprisingly. A lot of like really, really good like camera on a tripod pans, like slow movement, makes your camera feel a little out of place with your characters and makes you feel like you've got a bit of a, I don't know, like they're on a different plane than you. And like, I don't think that's a bad thing. David Fincher does it a lot. A lot of really good whip pans. When a kid gets possessed, they whip their head back and the camera yanks back with them. That's good stuff. Chair goes flying across the room, screams over there with it. Like a lot of fast kinetic motion that makes sharp events feel sharper. And then lastly, really good set design. There's a couple of great transitions, like into or out of a dream sequence, or into an or out of a possession scene. When our character will be standing, your camera will kind of pan around them, and in one smooth take, like the background will shift around them, and when the camera pulls all the way around, they're in a different scene. Or one character goes from laying down horizontal to being vertical in one smooth camera movement. Like a lot of really effective tricks, I think, that comes out of the director's YouTube experience over on the Raka Raka channel. Really impressive, like subtle, but like cheap, practical filmmaking, and it pays dividends in this movie. Like it's great effects.
Right. It's taking the art of cinematography and seeing what can we do on this small budget to really make this creepy and interesting. And that's a good time to talk about the scares. We have a lot of body horror in this. There's a fair amount of gore. It doesn't rely on a bunch of jump scares. There's a couple, but that's not what creeps this movie out. A lot of the stuff that's like disturbing and is going to scare you is not going to jump out. It's the opposite. It's a lot of very slow, creepy things, or just like disturbing body horror that I was shocked at several moments. I was like, oh my God, it's going there. So it has a lot of good scares.
Yeah, like lots of tangible sensations, I think, in your theater, and also not a bad runtime. I think it's a tight, like 94 minutes, 95. Looking at IMDb, if it was any longer, I think it might have overstayed its welcome. Like, it manages to tell a unique story that feels like it pays tribute to other haunted artifact films, right, or possession films of yore. It's particularly reminded of like Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Hellraiser a little bit. I like this. I don't know. I like the energy of what's happening here, and I think it's uniquely special. I don't know what these two directors are doing next. I'd read somewhere they might be doing a Street Fighter movie. That's not listed on IMDb, the number one source for all things film. So I don't know if that's true, but I hope they stay in this space because this is a really great start to something bigger. I think. Like I think it's. Oh, one more thing I wanted to talk about. Oh my God, I can't believe I haven't talked about this. The modern stuff, the phones, right? Like any movie worth its salt nowadays has got to have people with phones, and in that way, like Talk to Me embraces a similar place to where like Bodies was that we saw earlier this year. Every teenager has a cell phone, and they're all on Instagram, and they're all on Snapchat, and they're posting all the time. And I love it. I love that your characters are never like, oh no, the power's out and we can't use the landline. Your characters are never drawn to called for your characters aren't often drawn to call for help because they feel as if they can tackle it themselves, or they're too much in a panic and don't need it. Like, it's filmmaking for filmmaking's sake. You don't have to write around why characters aren't using the technology available to them. You need to write in why they're using what's there, and it's done to great effect. These two are young and they know it, and they talk to a young audience. Like, feels refreshing, feels nice in a movie theater. It's certainly not The Pope's Exorcist.
Yeah, they like when they first see the hand being used. Me and Jade see it on Instagram online. They're like, because someone else is posting videos of like, haha, look how possessed they are, and everyone's skeptical. They're like, no, that's not real. Let's go check this thing out. So it's a very smart way. And again, there's no like, oh, I don't have any service out here, or oh, I'm out in the middle. Like, there are times when you can use it and that's effective, but this film takes place in the modern day, in the city. That's never an excuse, and it's interesting to write with that. Yeah.
Overall, I think I was really pleased with Talk to Me, and I don't want to say much more without spoiling anything. Andy, anything else before reviews?
I just wanted to mention that it's always exciting when you see a new kind of hyped up film from new directors, and that it delivers, that it's not a letdown, and because that's almost more exciting than when I hear Tarantino doing his 10th film, and I'm much more excited about young new talent that really brings the heat than sometimes a lot of more established directors.
Yeah, hot same. Would you recommend Talk to Me?
Absolutely would, for fans of the horror genre. Again, horror not your thing, probably not. This is one to skip. Maybe Haunted Mansion's more of your up your scary alley. A lot of body horror and other kind of disturbing things. But I was generally creeped out, generally scared in a number of places. It touches on some interesting themes of loneliness and kind of just aloneness or being touch-starved, which I didn't expect. Great performances from this Australian and New Zealand cast. Highly recommend for horror fans.
Same. Talk to Me is great. You should totally go see it. If you are a horror fan, please go see this movie. Go see something that's not just a Blumhouse production, right? Go see something that's not Insidious 5, The Red Door. Go see something fresh. Go see something new. Support new voices in cinema. Talk to Me is good stuff. Please go see Talk to Me. Talk to Me is great. And you may not come off as shiny as we have. I know I've seen some people who are like, that wasn't what I expected. But like, God, isn't that nice every once in a while? Feels good, doesn't it? Like, to watch something that's just a little different. I think it is. So yeah, like, highly recommend Talk to Me. See it in a theater if you can. If not, I'm probably going to be on Paramount Plus, I think. Like, they seem to have a deal with Showtime, so this is an A24 feature. I'll bet it shows up over there, but we'll have to see where it shows up on streaming. Keep an eye out for Talk to Me. In the meantime, go check it out. Next up on the show, normally we do a bit of a segment in the middle here, right? Something fun. We talk about trailers that are coming up. We talk about what's killing cinema, the strike we talked about last week. We've talked about Disney in the past. But this week we're doing 3 reviews. So without further ado, I got to move into it, and I'm taking the summary. The movie is They Cloned Tyrone.